Brock Purdy gets the bag. Brock Purdy is paid. The 49ers and Brock Purdy agreed to a 5-year, $265 million contract with $181 million guaranteed. So we're going to talk about that, the deal, what it looks like for the 49ers, but I think about it, how it stacks up to the rest of the NFL and the rest of the quarterbacks kind of in that realm of monies. Okay, Mike Florio is the backdrop live from his kitchen. He interrupted dinner to give us the news.
It's the edition of PFTPM on a Friday night. This one necessitated by the new contract signed by 49ers quarterback Brock Purdy. Yes, his agent decided to tell reporters at 5 o'clock Eastern on a Friday that Purdy has agreed to a 5-year extension. Now, I've already seen the pushback on social media because I've raised the question of why would you let this be known in the spot where bad news goes to die?
Right. So Friday is usually when you release bad news because it gets lost in the weekend, gets lost in the news cycle. You know, bad. If you got something bad going on, drop it Friday evening, drop it Saturday morning. Conversely, if you have good news, drop it Monday, drop it Tuesday.
And not good news goes to thrive.
Yeah.
And folks have said it's still 2 o'clock Pacific time, but it doesn't matter. The world
Doesn't matter.
runs on East Coast time.
Yeah.
It's 5 o'clock East Coast time when the news comes out. That's just odd from the get-go. And look, here's how this is going to go. 5-year, $265 million extension, $53 million per year in new money, less than I thought he was going to get. I thought they were going to put enough phony baloney stuff on.
So the contract is interesting because if you look at just the yearly number, it's kind of inherently fugazi because we know that money is just going to continue going up for the NFL. We know contracts will continue going up. We know average salaries will continue going up. Usually the real barometer of the contract is the guaranteed money, the percentage of the contract that is guaranteed. For example, like Trevor Lawrence got over $200 million guaranteed, right? So Purdy's is 181 out of the 265 guaranteed.
On the back end to get it up to 55 million or more. Because you got two guys north of 55 million currently in new money average. You got multiple guys tied at 55. I thought they were going to get him to 55-1. He's at 53. That ties him for 7th with Jared Goff.
Yeah, so when contracts happen, usually the client, in this case Brock Purdy, when they sign that contract, they want it to be at par with some of the contracts that were just happening, right? They want it to be, okay, I just saw blank player do a contract. I want to match that. I want to be in that ballpark. The fact that he is sitting at 7th is a bit of a discount. It is one of those things where I think, I mean, granted, it's hard to say it's a discount when he's making $181 million, guaranteed $50 million a year. But to me, this seems like they came to a bit of a underspoken or underset agreement of where they weren't fishing for top dollar. They're fishing for middle of the road compared to his production kind of money.
53. It's either Jared Goff or it's one of the mid-level quarterbacks that somehow got a big contract. I think it's Goff. Just work with me. He's tied for 7th. Now, here's the question.
All right.
And here's the reality. When you factor in what he was due to make this year, this is a 6-year contract with a $45 million per year average. Remember that. The new money always is the thing that gets pushed because it makes the deal look better.
Yeah.
It makes the agent look better. All that matters is the length of the contract. It's a 5-year extension on a 1-year deal for a 6-year, $45 million per year contract. And look, that's not bad. That's not out of line with where Purdy currently is. The key is going to be this. 3 factors. What's the signing bonus? How much is fully guaranteed at signing? And what is the cash flow for the first 3 years? Specifically, when can the 49ers get out of this deal? Is it a 3-year commitment? Is it a 2-year commitment? Is it a 1-year commitment? The details are going to show a lot.
Yeah, I mean, that was like the T. Higgins contract, right? Like the agents want to put these huge numbers out there. The players want to put these huge numbers out there. The team wants to put these huge numbers out there. Then you look at the contract, you're like, well, actually, it's like a 1-year deal, like for T. Higgins. You know, like Derek Carr's contract. It was really like a 2-year deal. There's a lot of contracts like that where they look great, but in reality, it's like, it's more like 2-year whatever. And who knows what Purdy's will be. Like Florio said, if it's a $53 million a year contract, it puts him in this space right here. Puts him at 5th, or the value is 5th. But 53 is seventh. But if you drop it down to whatever he said, 45, all of a sudden now, this contract doesn't look bad at all. Let's go to quarterbacks. If you drop it down to 45, like Florio was saying, if you average it out over 6 years, and you're in this territory, it's like, yeah, okay. I mean, all right, I guess Purdy could be somewhere in there, right? Like, Purdy's not up here. Purdy's not, well, I mean, these guys aren't up here either, but Purdy isn't a top 5 quarterback, right? He shouldn't be comped with Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, players like that. But if he's down if he's making top 10 money, you could argue that he's a top 10 guy. And if the 49ers think he's a top 10 guy and they think he'll be a top 10 guy, then it's not insane money as far as like what the 49ers are actually paying for.
A lot here. But the bottom line is Purdy traded in $5.4 million that he was due to make this year for the certainty of a good to great but not awesome contract. And that's okay. I think it may be a fair deal for both sides here once we see the details. Because the bottom line is he's a middle of the pack guy. And that's okay. Not everybody can be top 10. He's not one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. He's good enough for the 49ers. They want to keep him. Let's see what this contract looks like when we dig into the details. We know how it goes. The number gets trumpeted to the world, and then the truth follows 1, 2, 3, 4 days later. And often, the longer it takes for the truth to come out, the more they're trying to hide. Case in point, and last point before I wrap this up, in 2014, a certain former 49ers quarterback named Colin Kaepernick got a deal that was regarded as this awesome, spectacular thing. And then when the deal was broken down and the details came out, it's like, somebody's full of something on this. And usually it's the agents trying to make it seem better than it was.
So here's the deal with Purdy. Thank you, Mike. So what you need to know about Purdy's contract, or I guess the deal itself, is that the 49ers believe in this guy. And, you know, when I first saw the news, I was like, I probably wouldn't have done that. In my mind, it happens all too often where a quarterback gets paid and the team cannot put the pieces around him to make him as successful as he was prior to getting paid. We saw it with Jared Goff in Los Angeles. We see it with Dak Prescott. We see it with even with the 49ers right now, where you see people getting peeled off of that team, that core, that great core they had when Purdy was playing at an elite level on a cheap deal. Now a lot of those pieces are getting removed. Deebo Samuel, they just don't have the resources. Cincinnati, they've gone all in on Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. What's happening? All of a sudden now, can't pay the defense. All right, they have the lowest salary cap invested in the defense in the NFL. Okay, what's that going to bring Cincinnati? And we saw it with Seattle with Russell Wilson. They were incredible whenever he was on his rookie deal. Once he gets paid, all of a sudden, this defensive player can't be signed, this defensive player can't be signed, this wide receiver can't be signed, and then you lose those pieces. All right, so in my opinion, there are two ways to win the NFL is you have an MVP level quarterback. You have a quarterback playing at the highest possible level, whether it's through the playoffs, whether it's through the end of the season, whatever. But you have to have an MVP level playing quarterback. Or you have a quarterback on a cheap deal in order for you to have elite play across the rest of the team. All right, like with Joe Flacco or something. So that's the two ways to win. It's very difficult to win when you dump all this money into a middle of the pack quarterback and hope that they can carry you. Because don't get it twisted. When you make a deal like this, you are saying, we believe we can win with this guy. We believe we can win within this contract. So you shrink your window. And because you shrink your window, you got to make the playoffs. You got to get to the Super Bowl. You got to get to a conference title. And if you don't, it's a failure. And that's kind of the crux of it in my opinion, I think Kyle Shanahan is good enough of a head coach and a play caller and an offensive mind that he could get similar production out of virtually anybody. If you could just flipped it and Sam Darnold was the starting quarterback of the 49ers next year, I bet Sam Darnold would have one hell of a year. if something happened to Brock Purdy and Mac Jones has to step in and Mac Jones is the starting quarterback of the 49ers, I bet Kyle Shanahan could get him playing at a pretty high level. So I probably wouldn't have invested the money in Brock Purdy. But I'm not Kyle Shanahan. And if Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch are like, no, this is my guy. This is the guy I want running this offense. This is the guy who is 2 years removed from getting MVP votes. This is the guy a couple years removed from the Super Bowl. This is the guy who knows my offense, runs my offense. I believe in him. We believe in him. If that's the situation, okay. And if you think Brock Purdy is a top 10, top 12 quarterback, the money kind of makes sense. Now let's take a look at Brock Purdy compared to some of the quarterbacks in this same space. So all these guys have similar monies. All right. So like if we look at the value of the deals, you got Brock Purdy, Trevor Lawrence is third, which is insane. Joe Burrow's in there. Justin Herbert's in there. Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, Dak, Kyler, Deshaun Watson, Jordan Love, Tua, Jared Goff's down there. So it's all relatively the same, especially if you look at average salary, right? So it's Purdy, Herbert, Goff, Tua, all these guys. All right. I didn't include Josh Allen. I didn't include Lamar Jackson because they're MVPs. Like they are MVPs of the league. They should be getting this money. Okay. So here's the six. Okay. Herbert, Purdy, Lawrence, Burrow, Hurts, and Tua. Relatively similar amount of money, relatively similar age, relatively similar amount of games played, all that. So if you look at it like this, okay, they're all kind of the same. So, and you can argue who's better. Like you can argue Jalen Hurts is the best out of this group. You can argue Joe Burrow is the best out of this group, whatever. But you can argue Trevor Lawrence is the worst out of this group, which I would agree with you. I think that's pretty evident. I mean, his record, the stats, I think it's all pretty obvious. And Purdy has the least amount of games. If you extrapolate his yards per game out, he has more yards than Lawrence. So if you extrapolate it out, Lawrence has the least amount of yards, the least amount of touchdowns, the most interceptions. So I think it's okay saying Lawrence is the worst of the bunch. But if you look at these guys and you say, yeah, they're all kind of making the same amount of money, it's like, all right, okay, sure. And for a lot of these guys, you can't even say, like the argument would be, well, I mean, you're not going to win with Brock Purdy. Well, Brock Purdy sure as hell has won more than Tua or Justin Herbert or Trevor Lawrence, right? I mean, Jalen Hurts has the championship. Jalen Hurts has done what he's done in the last year. Joe Burrow went to the Super Bowl, but has had, back-to-back 9 and 8 seasons. So Joe Burrow is even in the conversation where it's like, hey, man, you're going to have to win at some point. Now, Joe Burrow did have what I think was an MVP-type year last year. He was nuts. So I think Joe Burrow's in a different class than these six guys, or these five other guys. But, and then we have Jordan Love and Jared Goff. So these are guys also in the conversation. Goff, hell of a record. Detroit was sweet, no doubt about it. Goff's numbers are sweet. We'll see what happens now that Ben Johnson's gone, but hard to say that Jordan Love deserves his contract more than Brock Purdy deserves his contract. So there is absolutely going to be a bit of a pushback because Purdy is 6 foot. He's physically, not eye-catching. He doesn't have a rocket arm. He's not a superior athlete. He's, like I say, small. He's baby-faced. Because of all of that, he's a Mr. Irrelevant. Because of all that, people are going to say, well, he shouldn't have got the money. Well, Trevor Lawrence only got the money because he's, 6'5", has long hair, and was the first overall pick. All right, so at some point you do kind of have to look at what Purdy has done and what the 49ers believe he can do. You then slot the contract in that somewhere between 7 and 12. If you slot the contract, 7 I think is high because I think Florio is right. Like you have to kind of average it so it drops it down a little bit, and then the average salaries are just going to keep continuing. So, I mean, let's just say 10. Okay, let's say 10 to 12 or 10 to 14, somewhere in there. 14 might be low. Let's say 10 to 12. 8 to 12, meet you in the middle. If Brock Purdy is somewhere in that 8 to 12 ballpark, it's all right. I mean, yeah, that's about what you would expect for the 49ers to keep him. And the 49ers are saying they believe that they are committed to the Kyle Shanahan-Brock Purdy marriage for 5 years, is what they're saying. Now, we know the contract may end up being 3 years, 4 years, who knows, but that's what they're saying. That they believe within the 5 years, they can get it done. Now, what they will have to do is invert how they have been doing business. Because they are now paying Brock Purdy, and because they are investing a significant amount of their salary cap into Purdy, they're going to have to fill out the rest of the roster in a different manner. That manner is the way the Eagles do it, the draft. Cheap, young players. Can the 49ers do that? Can the 49ers now build the rest of the roster around Brock Purdy, get young, get cheap, get impactful? If they can do that, and Christian McCaffrey can stay healthy, this thing might work. I love Kyle Shanahan like a brother. I think he's a top 5 coach in the league. Easy. I love him. I think he's the man. Even last year, as bad as the 49ers were, as injury-riddled as they were, Shanahan still had that offense humming. And it got down to the 3rd and 4th string running backs, and he still had them moving. So when healthy, I have no doubt Shanahan will have them back up. Maybe not to Super Bowl levels, but back up there. The last thing I'll say about it is this. This is one hell of a story. I mean, to go from Mr. Irrelevant to the run he had when everyone was getting hurt, to almost winning the Super Bowl, to almost winning the MVP, to getting paid $181 million guaranteed, $265 million, $50 million a year. Insane. It really kind of shows that quarterbacks and talent and results all come in different shapes and sizes. You can be Brock Purdy, who looks like me. Just, not a rocket arm, not a great athlete, not your normal quarterback stature, baby face, whatever. But you get in the right system, you get the right coach, you understand it, and you kind of play your way, you can get the bag. You can be 6'6", 240 pounds like Josh Allen, one of the greatest quarterback prototypes ever. You can get the bag that way. You can be Lamar Jackson, get the bag that way. Right? You can be Tom Brady, 6th-round pick. Nothing special, but just had it. Right? Like, there's so many different walks of being a quarterback, and Purdy was absolutely and is absolutely the most unlikely story. I mean, Purdy, Kurt Warner, those kind of guys, unbelievable story. So, if nothing else, congrats to Brock Purdy. It's an interesting move from the 49ers. Would I have done it? No, but that's because I believe in Kyle Shanahan's ability to turn anybody into a superstar. I wouldn't have given a lot of these guys the money because I think a lot of the situations, you just plug someone else in there, you use the money somewhere else, and you're probably going to get about the same results. There's only so many of these guys that I would truly, like Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, because of what they do. Obviously Mahomes. Like, those are the guys where it's like, all right, we kind of need this guy. Like, this guy is kind of the cog of this whole thing. Like, we're going to go as far as this guy brings us. Jordan Love? I don't think so. Trevor Lawrence? No. Dak? No. Tua? No. Like those guys, it's like, we could probably rotate someone else in, get cheaper. But, hey, Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch know a hell of a lot more than I do, so I got to trust them. And if they want Purdy, they got him. So we'll see what the 49ers do now. Like I said, they now have to get cheap, young. The draft's going to be imperative for them. They got to keep their players that they invested in. They have to keep them healthy. And, Purdy dealt with some injury issues previously. So they're going to have these guys on the field, get a ton out of them. and then build out the roster somewhere else. So there you go. Purdy gets the bag. Congratulations, Brock Purdy. 49ers fans, I have a feeling, are split on this, but I don't think the deal is as big or as bad, maybe I think, as people are making it. All right. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next video.